I will prove Coulter wrong after I come back down to earth. I feel like you driving in traffic right now. Just straight fury. Next.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hi, this is Ryan from Bob Ward's Sports and Outdoors. We are open 7 days a week, limited hours. We're sanitizing every surface possible as often as we can. And we're offering curbside pickup. Just call in your order, and we'll collect it for you, bag it on up, and when you arrive, we'll run it out and put it in the trunk, truck bed, or back seat of your car. Contactless handoff for gear. Right now, during this time, to stay positive, focus on what I can control, and doing things that are recommended by the CDC and the World Health Organization is kind of my mantra. What you can do to keep yourself and everyone healthy is what you should focus on, and do it the best you can. Bob Wards would like to let our communities know that Montana is resilient. We've been around for 103 years. That should be proof enough that Montana can bounce back from just about anything. So focus on keeping yourself and those around you healthy. Stay strong, Montana.
Everybody knows that high school sports generate suspense, excitement, and drama.
They also generate higher grade point averages, stronger work habits, and greater self-esteem.
Everybody knows that high school sports give us more value for our entertainment dollar.
They also give us leaders committed to strengthening communities right here in Montana. The true value of playing sports in school can't be measured in wins and losses or dollars and cents. Studies show that participation in sports, along with other extracurricular activities, is one of the best ways to teach leadership, cooperation, accountability, and other invaluable life skills. Don't just stand on the sidelines. Encourage the young people you know to get in the game. When you do, you'll be helping them get ahead in life. High school sports, a winning part of a complete education. This message presented by the Montana High School Association and the Montana Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Man, I love my kids so much. I once sat for 3 hours in the cold rain to watch her soccer team lose by 18 goals.
I love my kids so much, I once used a tube to suck snot out of her stuffed nose at 3 a.m.
You win.
Love your kids? Love them enough to make sure they're in the right car seat. From toddlers to tweens, visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat to find the right seat for their age and size. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
'16, Doug Baldwin, 8th most receptions in the league, 2nd best catch percentage in the league. Pro Bowler, All-Pro. 6-rounder.
Has he ever caught 10 touchdowns in a year?
Let me tell you what he caught right here. Seven.
Yeah.
In 2016.
There, very good. So that's my whole point.
Okay. So because they're running the ball with
one
of the greatest,
it's a lot easier
aggressive running backs of all time.
It's a lot easier to make the Pro Bowl when like 6 guys that are better than you just decide to not go.
Good.
What are we listening to? What's the radio station that the listeners are listening to you two about to rip each other's heads off on?
This show is called Tutel and Nuanez. It's wrought with misinformation and bad opinion.
Why don't you guys just fight? Let's arm wrestle it out. Let's box it out.
God, don't tempt me. Of all the things that I need in my life, that's probably top of the list.
It's
but not Ryan. I don't think I could fight Ryan.
There's just so many guys that you could point. Like if you talk to me about Sean Alexander, I would be so on board with you. Like the number of like he has this one great year and then goes and like takes a knee to avoid getting hit over and over and over again.
Okay,
that's fine. But Doug Baldwin is absolutely the wrong guy to hang your argument on this.
Doug Baldwin has never had more than 1,128 yards in a season.
1,128 yards of wide receiver is a pretty great season.
It's pretty great.
Yeah,
but not transcendently good. Not top 10 in the league ever. Here's the best way I could describe it. Doug Baldwin has never been rated more than an 89 in Madden. He's just an 89. He's really good, but he's not Randy Moss. He's not Larry Fitzgerald. He's not Anquan Boldin. He's not DeAndre Hopkins. He's not Julio Jones. He's not Antonio Brown.
He's a 6th-round draft pick out of Stanford. That's what he is.
Right, but he's also a system guy, and
every player is a system guy.
Except for guys that make the system themselves.
Player.
Except for guys that make the system themselves. No. Doug Baldwin has never been better than most of his great peers. That's my only argument. Doug Baldwin, again, is very good. He's an 89. He's an 89.
Unbelievable. Just unbelievable.
He has also only made 2 Pro Bowls and never been an All-Pro.
Do you want to talk about the 25-day program?
No, I'd rather talk about recruiting across enemy lines.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Dylan Rollins is one of the top prospects in the state, and we'll get more into recruiting because I'm actually working on a project after hours here during my quarantine. But I mean, as you guys know, at Skyline Sports we cover recruiting pretty hard, but we've kind of shifted the way that we've covered recruiting from telling the stories of the guys that are getting recruited by Montana State that eventually commit to Montana State, rather than being the people that promote the recruiting element of it. When I first started covering recruiting, putting kids' Twitter films on Huddle and evaluating in-state prospects and stuff like that, I thought it was good because it was good for our business, but it was also, I thought, helpful for the kids. I don't think in the world we live in today, the kids need any help. They know how to promote themselves very well, and
too well.
Too well, right. And I mean, there's not like some kids in – it's very few and far between are going to have a kid in Broadus or Columbus, Montana that just needs an adult to help him get his film into somebody's hands. Everybody knows all the kids now.
What they need are the coaches need help opening the file. That's what they need.
Right. Well, but all these coaches now are like 15 years younger than us. So
yeah, that's true.
I mean, these guys are like 25. But regardless – we are going to do some evaluations of some of the in-state kids because I think it'd be interesting for us during this exact time period. And I will say this. I think the state of Montana, I think there's about 7 kids in the state of Montana this year that are better than what's come out of the state the last couple of years. I think Dylan Rollins at Sentinel is the best offensive line prospect I've seen coming out of the state. Honestly, probably since Mitch Brott. I think he's real deal. He's 6'5", 265 pounds, but he's lean. He's got good feet. He's got good hands. He can play guard and tackle. He's got a tremendous amount of upside. That's why you see him getting interest from BYU, Utah State, Oregon State, Arizona State. But at the end of the day, he is the son of a former Bobcat, Josh Rollins, and he is the brother of a current Bobcat in Byron Rollins. And so he has strong ties on the Montana State side of things. Well, yesterday he picked up an offer from the University of Montana, and I think it's intriguing because I think that there's a lot of different things that are going to go into this young man's decision. Does he want to wait it out past the early signing period and maybe see if he can get one of those Power 5 schools to actually pull the trigger with an offer? Because right now he just has heavy interest. He does not have offers from the Power 5s or the FBS programs. He does have offers from the FCS programs in state. So that's a personal decision for him. But then also I know that, as somebody that's played at Sentinel for several years, he's played with both Chad Germer's boys. So he's familiar with the Germer family on a personal level. I think he likes Coach Germer a lot. And as we know, Coach Germer is a tremendous offensive line coach at the University of Montana. But then on the other side, you have one of the best offensive lines in the country at Montana State and a chance to join a program that, regardless of your family connections, runs the ball almost exclusively. Yeah. And that sounds pretty fun as an offensive lineman. So it'll just be interesting to see how this all plays out. But I just wanted to have a little bit of a conversation about Bobby Hauck and his recruiting strategies. I think since Coach Hauck left for UNLV in 2009, the next Grizz coaches and then Rob Ash and Jeff Choate at Montana State, at least early on, it was kind of we're going to see who the kids are affiliated with And if you have someone like, say, a Jesse Sims, for example, okay, we're the Cats. We'll recruit him a little bit, but we're not going to put the full court press on this guy because he's from Stevensville. You know, he's going to school in Corvallis. His sister's playing for the Lady Grizz. The guy's probably signed, still delivered as a Grizz. And I think that we've seen it on both sides. You know, guys that just have strong Cat ties going to the Cats. But Coach Houck is refusing to wave the white flag, and I think it's also made Jeff Choate refuse to wave the white flag too. And so you've seen Houck recruiting Bozeman High School heavily.
Yeah.
You've seen offers on both sides of the state from previously kids maybe you didn't think you could get. And so I think this is interesting because it made me think of when Coach Houck, he used to try to go get ex-Bobcat players' sons, and he successfully did it a couple of times. And he's even already done it here this year too. I mean, Joe Gradney, Trevin Gradney's father, played at Montana State. Trevin Gradney for Billings West now plays for the Grizz. So it's happened before, and I just think it makes it even more intriguing, the in-state battles.
Yeah, there's a couple things, too, that I think are worth bearing in mind. First of all, we talk about, well, did you get recruited? You know, who did Montana or did Montana State recruit this kid, recruit that kid? Well, guess what? Recruiting, the word recruiting, carries a very wide variety of sorts with it.
Sure.
There is, you know, a call or a text from, you know, a grad assistant to put a feeler out there, and then there's the home visit from the head coach and the position coach and multiple, you know, everything that you could do laying out the red carpet for a kid, right? And so when we talk about, well, did you get recruited or are they recruiting this guy? What we don't necessarily know is how are they recruiting him. And a lot of times I'm sure that there's times where the recruitment is somewhat token in relation to you know, the other school, if we're talking about Montana State. And we hear kids say this all the time, you know, really felt like they wanted me. You know, they talk about that. Well, what does that amount to? Well, it amounts to the amount of time and effort and contact that's put in. And the coaches know both who they want and also what their likelihood is. And I think there is, you know, a pretty sober assessment of how likely it is to get a guy. And then you know, if you think you got a 20% chance at a kid who's, you know, looks like he's already on the route to another school, but he's really good, you still maybe put it in and see if you can get that to happen. So that's the first thing is how are kids being recruited, because it varies wildly. The other thing is, how good is a kid? How good is he as a player? And a guy like Dylan Rollins, you better recruit him. No matter who, you know, if you're Montana State, no matter where his father is, where his brother is, whatever, he's that type of player that could be, you know, a Mountain West or even a Pac-12 type of guy. Then he better be getting attention from you, especially in the city that your school is in. So I think the dynamic on it, like I'll put it like this: if a kid is sort of a marginal prospect,
right,
and has clear ties to the other place, and you go after him anyway, that's a lot more of a shot over the bow, so to speak, or of going toe-to-toe for the sake of going toe-to-toe than it is about, you know, maybe you got a 3-star offensive lineman in your own backyard. You'd be foolish, you know, not to go try and get him. So I think, you know, that is worth considering on this. And certainly Dylan Rollins is a kid who warrants that sort of attention. I have a question.
So I guess if people are wondering a more recent example of this, like last year, everybody always asks me who won the in-state recruiting battle. Last year, there was only 2 kids that were really heavily recruited by both sides. Yeah. Like Carson Rosshead, for example, was the Gatorade Player of the Year in Montana as a junior. He did not get recruited by the Cats.
Right.
The Cats were not interested. It's not that if they were not interested, they just didn't think it was actually even worth the time.
Right. Because they did the assessment and said,
I mean,
you know what?
He's Jordy Tripp's cousin. Yeah. They thought that they had, you know, another quarterback in the boat in that Grady Robinson kid who actually ended up going to Western Kentucky. So quarterback's a different situation too, but like, I mean, Tommy Mellott was really the only kid that was a true in-state guy that really got full force, full court press by both sides. But I think that's what I'm getting at here is that this is going to change. I think that both sides are going to start going after each other's guys, and I love it. I think it's great.
Has there ever been brothers that have gone to this different school at relatively the same time, even if they're 2 years apart or whatever, where they were? I mean, maybe they're not physically playing against each other on the field, but one kid is on the Montana roster and the other kid's on the Montana State roster.
That's an interesting one. I will find out. That's a great question.
We should find that out. I wonder if that's ever happened, because if Dylan Rollins went to the University of Montana, we would have that very scenario.
Right.
So it would be, an interesting deal. You see it all the time, right? The parents who have two kids on different teams and they wear the sewn together jersey or whatever it is. But, it's a little different when you're talking about Montana State.
This is great. This is from Dylan Rollins' father, Casey and Corey Robinson. They played on Tuesday. Actually, Corey Robinson was my first landlord when I first moved to Bozeman.
Right?
Yeah, he's a Missoula guy playing for the Cats, and Casey Robinson played here. So that was in the late '90s. So
Casey and Corey Robinson.
There you go. Robinson. Thank you so much, Josh, for that.
Crowdsourcing a little bit of information. We appreciate that very much. Okay, hour number 1 in the books. Hour 2 straight ahead. A long discussion about why Doug Baldwin is a Hall of Famer. Next.
Have you been hurt or disabled? Are you missing time from work and not sure what to do? I'm attorney Chris Helmer, and Clark Fork Law Offices in Missoula is here to help. Our team specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. We fight for the benefits you deserve. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation, or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
Do you remember how fond you were of your baseball cards as a kid? To recapture that feeling, swing into Zootown Sports Cards. Missoula's premier trading card shop carries all the products you will need for collecting, whether you are renewing an old hobby, just getting started, or looking for a fun activity for your kids. With inventory that is updated regularly, Zootown Sports Cards has the best selections at the best prices anywhere in the valley. Open from noon till 6 on Tuesday through Friday and 10 to 6 on Saturdays. Come check out Zootown Sports Cards at South Avenue in Higgins, across from Dornblazer Field.
At Missoula Bone & Joint, the safety and well-being of our patients, employees, providers, and community is our highest priority. We are open, but we have made changes to help minimize the spread of the coronavirus and to conserve medical supplies. With new information changing daily, please visit our website, MissoulaBoneandJoint.com, for the latest updates. Our walk-in orthopedic clinic is open for those unexpected orthopedic injuries. Missoula Bone & Joint on Mullen Road. Quality care from people who care.
Hi, this is Ryan from Bob Ward Sports and Outdoors. We are open 7 days a week, limited hours. We're sanitizing every surface possible as often as we can. And we're offering curbside pickup. Just call in your order, and we'll collect it for you, bag it on up, and when you arrive, we'll run it out and put it in the trunk, truck bed, or back seat of your car. Contactless handoff for gear. Right now, during this time, to stay positive, focus on what I can control, and doing things that are recommended by the CDC and the World Health Organization is kind of my mantra. What you can do to keep yourself and everyone healthy is what you should focus on, and do it the best you can. Bob Wards would like to let our communities know that Montana is resilient. We've been around for 103 years. That should be proof enough that Montana can bounce back from just about anything. So focus on keeping yourself and those around you healthy. Stay strong, Montana.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana. KKVU HD3 Stevensville and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. A trio of players from the Montana State football team have entered the NCAA transfer portal, including part-time starting cornerback Tyree Gibson, as well as his twin brother Tyrese Gibson, who they both entered on Tuesday evening. That came just a few hours after sophomore running back Tyrell Burgess also entered his name in the portal.
Tyree Gibson served as one of Montana State's primary man-to-man corners last season, playing heavily in a rotation that also included senior Damian Washington and junior Tyrell Thomas. Gibson had an elevator role because senior All-Big Sky cornerback Munchie Filer missed all of last season. Gibson notched 9 tackles and broke up 3 passes in 2019 for the 11-4 Bobcats. Tyrese Gibson, he played in 2 games, mostly on special teams, and also broke up a pass.
The 5'8", 160-pound Burgess was one of Montana State's fastest players from the day he stepped on campus out of Haines City, Florida. He was one of MSU's primary kick returners in 2017, had 5 touches from scrimmage in 2018, but missed last year due to injury.
And with the resignation of Jay Jagielski as the Missoula Sentinel boys basketball coach, Montana Class AA now has 5 head coaching openings. Jagielski and Kalispell Flathead boys coach Ross Gustafson each stepped away, as did Eric Peterson at Helena High. Also openings at Kalispell Flathead and Missoula Big Sky on the girls' side.
This ESPN Sports Center is presented by Clark Fork Law. Now from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tutel and Coulter Nuanez.
Is this Paramore?
Yeah,
Oh,
buddy.
yeah.
Are you playing this because I wore a beanie to the office today?
Partially.
Also, just because we were just talking about how sweet they are.
One of the greatest bands ever. Paramore.
I mean, I'm fine with Paramore. I'm not going to hate on Paramore. I will take issue with the greatest ever statement. They're not better than Doug Baldwin. Stu Tell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, hour number 2.
Having the ability to look at you was such a miss in the design of this place.
let me help you here. If you're watching
Yeah.
on TV, just
Nice done.
give
Nice,
you the
nicely
back,
done.
straight backside.
What is higher? Doug Baldwin's level of greatness or the number of listeners who know who Macklemore is?
You guys, I'm going to quit. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Goodbye.
We have not had the Macklemore thing since the fall of 2017. I just really wanted Tommy to feel engaged, you know. 'cause
There's
this
a
is-
reason we haven't talked about it since then. You
No.
lost half of your listenership. You went from 10 to 5 over the Macklemore thing.
He's talking thousands.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
no.
You are delirious.
If you missed anything in the first hour, a glorious first hour, which I decimated Colton Nuanez, you can listen on the podcast. The podcast is available all the time, wherever you get your podcast. It is out there thanks to Blackfoot. You go check it out. Thanks to Blackfoot. Rate, review, subscribe. We appreciate that. All guests join us via the Rankish Brothers RV phone line. If you'd like to listen live, 1029ESPN.com is where you do it. The stream is available all the time thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Doug Baldwin's level of greatness is, one thing. Of course, it's Macklemore's fame is higher.
Amongst our listeners.
Well, you didn't qualify it that way.
Yes, I did.
Did he?
You guys, I'm going to decimate both of you
Now,
pretty darn quick here.
I forget, Tommy, because it's been a little while. Do you
Yeah.
hate Macklemore or do you like Macklemore? Or is
Tommy's on my side
you
on
just
this,
hate-
that less than the percentage of listeners that you think knows who Macklemore is.
No, that's not true at all.
Thank you.
Fake news from Coulter Nuanez yet again today.
We will almost certainly circle back to this because there's no live sports going on. But we actually do have something of consequence to get to right
Yes, we
now.
do.
And that is our friend Raleigh Wooster, who has been an outstanding basketball player all 4 years at Hellgate High School. Also, then a great football player in his own right, the quarterback of the Hellgate Knight football team, helping them, amongst other things, break the streak, the ignominious streak of losing that they had for some number of consecutive years, which I don't recall the final total, and it doesn't really matter because they won. And it was better than any state championship you could imagine when Hellgate finally broke through and got the W on the gridiron. But Raleigh Wooster was a basketball player first and recruited first as a basketball player initially by the University of Montana and had given a verbal commitment. It's obviously very different from a national letter of intent or something like that. It's non-binding. But after his freshman year going into his sophomore year playing basketball, but as he continued to get exposure and continued to be to excel on the basketball court, had a number of different offers come through and ultimately chose to go to Utah State to play there in Logan, Utah. Interesting, again, the Missoula ties. If you haven't heard Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast, go check that thing out. But Stu Morrill, head coach at the University of Montana for 6 years, 7 years for Stu Morrill with the Grizzlies, and then went to Utah State and really sunk his teeth in 18 years there and made Utah State one of the premier how do I want to say it? It's certainly a premier program, not in sort of the national power type of sense of winning national championships and stuff like that, but in terms of the draw and the entity that college basketball occupies in Logan. It's as good as it gets. The environment, and they've been great. I mean, they've been a top 25 team perennially. So anyhow, Raleigh Wooster going to go there, but we appreciate him joining us and talking about all this stuff, as well as finishing his senior year on the World Wide Web, among other things.
Bizarre situation. I mean, I think that we take it for granted because when you remember back to your high school graduation so many years ago, you think of it as like cool, but you're also like, man, I was a kid back then, whatever. But when you are a kid, you don't get to do it. I mean, that's a sad thing. Like when you're a Raleigh Wooster and you play football, you play basketball, but then you only play spring hoops, you just don't get to have your last quarter with your boys. You're hanging out and just goofing off and doing the senior thing. I mean, it's too bad. I mean, it's your last chance to really be a kid.
For you and Raleigh, if Raleigh in this situation, or you hypothetically to have missed your last semester or quarter of your senior year, would have been a tremendously disappointing thing to have happen. I would have prayed for this. This would have been great for me, but I got through it anyways. It's okay. Different paths. In any case, it's our Farmers State Bank Prep Extra segment. Farmers State Bank, call your local branch to make an appointment to speak to a lender or customer service representative. They are open for business, not their lobbies, but the rest of the bank, including the app. So you can go download the Farmers State Bank app or visit farmersebank.com. All right. We appreciate him for being with us. Enjoy our conversation with future Utah State Aggie and current Hellgate Knight, Raleigh Wooster. We go now to the Rankage Brothers RV phone line. We're happy to welcome in two-time Gatorade Player of the Year in boys basketball and a Utah State commit for basketball from Hellgate, Raleigh Wooster. Raleigh, thanks so much for being with us, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
Well, we're certainly happy to have you on again, and let's start with the craziness that was the season that you had, an unbelievable run, undefeated this year, and obviously this is a season that you and your Hellgate teammates really put it all together, get all the way to the championship game, and then the virus decides that, no, we're not having a championship game, and so you end being a state champion but a co-state champion. But take us through that, because I know this was something of a redemption tour for you, especially at the state tournament, to go and finish it off. I know you wanted to finish it all the way off and couldn't do it, but nonetheless, being undefeated and going out in your senior season the way you did and as a state champion still has to feel pretty good.
Yeah, it feels great, especially looking back on the year we had, being undefeated and just how good we played throughout the whole year. I think we stepped it up a level from last year. And I just think with the whole virus thing, obviously it was devastating right away. And I know me and my teammates still wish we could play that game. But, just looking back and knowing we didn't lose, undefeated, and the great year we had, I think we can all just look back and think of those as great times and celebrate that.
Now, maybe a silver lining, you got to be on SportsCenter with SVP, man. I mean, that's pretty good. The Hellgate Knights on senior night over there. Did you get to see that, and what did you think about that being on ESPN television?
Yeah, so it was funny how it all turned out. When they first started doing that, I seen all the teams they're putting on there, and, you just think, oh, that could be us, honestly, with the great year we had and then getting cut short for the final game. And then our trainer, Paul Kapp at Hellgate, tweeted at SVP, and then he ended up saying something back, and I think we all knew then we were going to be on, and I definitely watched it. I thought it was pretty cool. Just a good shout-out for us, and good kind of feels like a little bit of closure, I guess, to the year right now.
You guys had such a tremendous year. It was really fun to watch you, and I know you went through it with this whole group of seniors, 7 of you guys on the basketball team. I know some guys, there were some crossovers that played football too. But just take us through just the whole season, just going through it with these guys. I mean, how are you guys able to make it mesh? I mean, you had one of the leading scorers in the state in Cam Lawrence from Big Sky. But you guys never missed a beat. You seemed to play together from start to finish. So just going through it with those guys, what will you remember most about just the experience of navigating your senior year with a whole bunch of your classmates?
I think I'll just remember, obviously all the games and then state being undefeated. But I think just for me, the biggest thing is just, every day in practice, hanging out with your friends, competing and playing hard. I think those are just really fun memories for me, and especially we'll be down the road. And then I think for Cam coming in, obviously really helped us. I mean, great player, great shooter from Big Sky, averaged like 18 a game his junior year. It's hard to come in like that, or at least I'm sure it was for him, when you're scoring like that and you're the man on that team to come in. And he was still our great player, but we had multiple guys who could do things. And I think we just meshed really well throughout the year. And then all the rest of our guys, Beckett and Josh mainly played JV, came up. And then our whole bench played JV last year. So it was a bunch of new kids, honestly, on the varsity. And I think we just, from the start to finish, like you said, played really well together, moved the ball, played hard defense. And then I think it showed how well we meshed on the court.
Raleigh, when you look back at your exemplary career, I'm wondering what your maybe favorite game is now that all the games you've played in are done, and I'm wondering if that might have been even a football game a year ago, or if it did happen on the hardwood.
I think it's tough to say for me. I kind of like to keep both sports separate, like favorites, but I think, this year would have been great to play that last game and finish out on top, hopefully. At least I think we would have, and, that would have been probably the best one, the state championship. Coming up short definitely sucked my junior year, but I think just football, honestly, to get that first win, and the wins after that felt great too, but that first one, after so many years of that big drought of not winning or even really being competitive, was just really good for our school and team chemistry and coaches and everyone give us a sign of hope.
Well, we covered every single home game at the University of Montana this year for men's basketball, and arguably the best atmosphere I was in Dahlberg Arena this year was when you guys played Sentinel down at the Adams Center. So, what will you remember about that experience? What was that like, packing the house at Dahlberg Arena for a high school game?
It's a really good memory. I think it was sweet to get that many fans out, and we really appreciate the support from everybody. And I just think, to be in a big arena like that, kind of on the big stage, we came out and played really well. We shot well, moved the ball, we played good D. And it's always just a fun crosstown game versus those guys. It's really competitive, and I know we don't like each other, so on the court at least. So it gets really competitive, and the crowd gets into it. It's just a great atmosphere.
Raleigh Wooster joining us, football and basketball player at Hellgate High School, outstanding high school career, going to go play basketball at Utah State. Utah State was, I think, number 17 in the nation coming into the season this past season, which obviously we didn't get to finish off and see how the college season would have ended up either. But take us through this, because you, very early on in your career, freshman, sophomore year of high school, were recruited by the University of Montana to go there. And then as, you continued to play, got more exposure, more and more offers came through, and you said you kind of had to assess what you wanted to do, and ultimately decided that you wanted to go to Logan and play basketball at Utah State. So kind of what went into that decision? What was that process like for you?
Well, yeah, just committing so early, and then, with the whole decommitment and everything that happened, just didn't feel right, just like I didn't think the chemistry was there. And then just getting further on recruited, it was really fun, but also at the same time stressful, trying to decide one place to go, what you want to do, because it's going to be for hopefully the next 4 years of my life. But I just think I went down to Utah State on a visit earlier this year during football season, and I just had a blast. The campus and everything, it's a really pretty campus. It was really fun. There wasn't even school in session, and I just kind of right away had a feeling that's where I wanted to be at. And then just the basketball side of it, it just felt like a family. Just the coaches and players I got along with really well, and the way they ran practice and treated everyone outside of practice was just phenomenal to me. Again, just felt like a family, and just felt like it'll be a great experience.
Well, people that don't know need to know, and people that know definitely know. But Utah State, absolutely one of the best environments in all of college basketball. When you watch their games, their student section is just out of control. The way that they go, they have choreographed chants, and the whole thing is in sync. Outside of the ACC, it's one of the best environments in the entire country. How much of that played into your decision?
Obviously it's great to have a big crowd. They average a ton of fans every game, even in, games that aren't supposed to be a huge deal or beginning of the season when people aren't really coming out. At a lot of other places, they pack it full, which is really cool to see, because you love the support and the fun atmosphere like that. But I just think it kind of describes how the town is, around that campus, how much they support athletics. And I just think in my decision, I obviously didn't get to witness it in person this year, but just all the coaches send me videos all the time. You just see the crowd going crazy, and everything's super hype and fun. It just seems like a really fun place to play, and I just thought I think anyway that it'll be really fun playing down there.
You obviously had recruiting interest from your hometown Grizz, both basketball and football, and I know Montana State in the mix a little bit too, Utah State. Was there anybody else that came to the table later on in your high school career that really maybe sparked your interest, that recruited you and offered you anything?
Yeah, I had a couple places, like Boise State, offered me, and I went down on a visit there, and it was honestly a great time. I just like Utah State better and feel like it's a better fit for me. And then a bunch of schools in the Big Sky had called me, and then some other places like Pepperdine and, just a couple other that didn't necessarily offer me but were interested in me and recruiting me. But I felt the connection pretty quick with Utah State just when, going on the visit and then coming back and seeing Boise State and stuff. And then, it just felt right to me, honestly.
Well, it's interesting, too, right? Because it's not an indictment on any other teams or any other, schools. It is about fit. Like, I feel great in, my little Kia, and Coulter's got his jacked-up truck that he drives around, and it works for us, you know what? So you just got to find the right fit, right?
Yeah, for sure. And, I was going to go on a visit to Montana State, too. And then, I love Danny Sprinkle. He's a great coach, great guy. It was hard telling him no, too, and the rest of the coaches, honestly, because it's nothing against them or their school. It was a great time. It just feels like whatever's the better fit is where you want to be.
Well, right now it's been interesting to watch basketball out west in general because I think that the Pac-12 has been down a little bit, but we argue about that on our show all the time. Is it actually down or are the teams just more even, kind of just beating each other up? But here nor there, the Mountain West is arguably the premier basketball league in the West right now and definitely on par with the Pac-12. So what do you think about just transitioning to that level? What do you think this last couple of years has done to prepare you for it? And what are some of the next steps you think you need to add to your game to get ready to play in that league?
I just think I got to get faster, stronger, in the weight room, more athletic, and then just keep working on my skills. I think, I know I've been working hard, and Utah State sent me stuff to do lifting-wise and agility, sprint, stuff like that. Which is really fun because I enjoy that. And I just think the last years, playing for Hellgate and then also AU ball, you go get the exposure and you play against a lot of players you don't see all the time. And then you learn new things, new skills, work on stuff, and then come back to high school season and be able to showcase those in your hometown and across the state. And I just think it prepared me just mentally and physically. Those are long seasons and long summers of playing, and I'll definitely be in shape for that next year, or I need to be, and I think that's just what it prepared me for.
Well, as all of us that love basketball, we were all so sad when the NCAA tournament got canceled, and we were in the middle of the Big Sky tournament in Boise. We were about to watch the quarterfinals when the whole thing kind of came down, but maybe the indelible memory, the lone March Madness memory we got as sports fans was Utah State All-American Sam Merrill hitting the game-winning shot to win the Mountain West tournament against San Diego State. What an amazing moment. And he's an amazing player. I got a chance to see him live in Bozeman 2 years ago, and he's definitely one of the great players in all of college basketball. But, for you as a guy that's heading there, what was that moment like for you to watch? I'm sure you saw the highlights.
Yeah, I was kind of bummed out. We had a game, actually, at Sentinel for divisionals, probably I was getting warmed up while that game was going on, so I didn't get to see it live. But right before I went out, my football coach, Mick Morris at Hellgate, showed me the highlight, and it was just a crazy shot, especially to beat a good team like that. And just finish out on top in the Mountain West is really cool. I know, obviously, all the players and coaches were excited. I was super jacked. But, he's just a great player, too, and great players make great plays, and it was just an amazing shot, and he had an amazing career at Utah State.
Well, Coach Craig Smith, he's been there for a couple of years. I know that it was Stu Morrow, who has deep Missoula and Montana connections, that built the foundation at Utah State, was there for 18 years, won over 600 games, built Utah State into a power. But Craig Smith been there a couple of years now after taking over after doing a great job at South Dakota. Specifically, Coach Smith, what'd you like about him, his recruiting pitch, his coaching style, and just what his vision is for Utah State basketball?
Yeah, I think proof's in the pudding a little bit when he comes in, and they win the first year, and then they also win this year. Obviously, you got to be a good coach, and then I think he's just a player's coach. I think you want to play for him. His players want to, and I know I do. He just makes you feel like, he tells you what he loves about your game, what he thinks you can do, instills a lot of confidence in me, and, just supports me. He texts me all the time, sees all my family, he's doing checks in. And then he's all about the players. He doesn't have a super big ego about it. And, it's just all about the players. And I just enjoy being around him too, as a person, talking to him. He's easy to talk to. And I think just the way he runs things, you know, when I was on my visit, it was their first practice of the year. And I think it's one of the most professional practices I've seen, just like no wasted time, no wasted movement, just really professional, get to the point. And then all the stuff they do, I thought it was good, you know, enjoyed the practice. I just think he's a great guy.
Raleigh Wooster joining us, senior at Hellgate High School, two-time Montana Gatorade Player of the Year in boys basketball, headed to Utah State to play. Let's bring it back to the here and now, though, Raleigh, because you are in school, you're finishing up your senior year. You don't even know yet if you're going to be able to go back physically to school, so you're doing all this stuff remotely. Also, you're trying to physically prepare yourself, you know, for basketball, as you've been talking about in Logan. But this is a weird time for everybody. But what's it been like for you to try and, you know, do your classes online, over the phone, over the computer, and so on and so forth, and get, you know, across the finish line and get graduated so that, you know, you are, first of all, eligible and ready to go for next season, and then the basketball side of it too?
Yeah, you know, it hasn't been too bad for me. I think just the big thing for school right now is just having a computer and Wi-Fi to do it on. But the teachers at Hellgate have been great, and the administration, you know, they've been sending out a ton of emails and updating. We use Google Classroom for all our assignments, and it's pretty simple to use, so it's been nice that way.
It's simple for you, but trust me, your older teachers, they're struggling, my friend. I can tell you firsthand, there's a lot of people that are just going, I don't know how to upload a document. I can't get a picture on here. Very hard for the older group.
Yeah, I'm sure it might be, but just from my standpoint, it hasn't been too bad. But,
gotcha.
I think everyone's just been working hard to try and make it all work. It's just weird times right now. And then I think it's just unfortunate, especially if we can't ever go back this year, because, you know, you look forward to going back and, like, senior prom and graduation with your friends. And, you know, this is kind of one of the more fun parts of the year, knowing you're about to be done and finish out. But, I'm just making sure I get all my stuff done so I can be eligible for next year.
Well, Raleigh, I'll tell you what, man, we really appreciate it. We've enjoyed watching you throughout your high school career. We'll look forward to tracking you down there in Logan. Best of luck to you. We appreciate you joining us here today, and we'll certainly catch up with you on down the line. All right, man?
Yeah, sounds good. And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
He's perhaps the greatest basketball player in Montana history. But also, Riley Bradshaw went down there for a little while. It wasn't the right fit. He ended up coming back to Montana, so we'll see. But we've always enjoyed Raleigh. He's a great kid, and we wish him the best of luck.
Well, and one of the outstanding high school players, in Montana history. I mean, he really
certainly one of the most decorated. And it was really too bad because you asked him that first question about Hellgate's redemption tour. I mean, it's really too bad that Raleigh Worcester, he's one of only a couple guys to ever be multiple-time Gatorade Player of the Year. And that's a great individual accolade, but he also does not have a state championship. He has a co-state championship from this year, but he does not get that one shining moment, and I wish he would have had it because I think they certainly would have had it. I think Hellgate certainly would have won that game and capped a 24-0 season, and it would have been remembered as one of the great teams in the history of the state of Montana, and so it's too bad for those guys. But as you heard there, the kid has a positive attitude. He's not dwelling on the things that could have been. He's just focusing on what could be, and I think that's cool. I think it's great for him.
Stu Tell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Great to be with you on a Tuesday afternoon. Hope you are well. Hope things are excellent in your worlds. We appreciate you letting us be with you. Take a quick break on the other side. The latest transfer out of Idaho State's men's basketball team is transferring in conference to Weber State. We'll also take a look at who's even left on the team in Pocatello and what are the dynamics of transferring in general right now because they seem to be shifting pretty dramatically. I'll tell you why next.
Hey, Missoula. This is Brian over here at the Desperado, your king of wings. The Desperado crew is cooking up all your favorite delicious menu items daily from 11 a.m. until 8 p.m. for your curbside pickup delivery. When you place your order, give us your model and your color of your rig, and we'll get it out to you as soon as possible. We are also running a great $1 burger special every day until we get unsequestered, and a great gift certificate special. Buy a $50 gift certificate, and we'll throw in a free wing card for your next order of wings. Give us a call at 549-9651. Stay healthy, my friends. Thank you for your support. We'll see you soon.
For more than 4 decades, American Eye Care has been providing the best in family eye care with a distinctively Montana feel. Dr. Lindsay Vanio of Missoula is a second-generation optometrist whose mission is to provide quality vision for all ages, from children to students and adults alike. Come visit their newly designed facility for visions, examinations, eyeglasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses. In 2020, it's all about vision at American Eye Care, 1431 South Higgins, or call 549-5550.
The 2020 International Wildlife Film Festival is happening April 18th through the 25th. This virtual festival promotes understanding of wildlife, habitat, and nature with over 65 films available online.
The Love Bugs features 2 entomologists that amass the world's largest private collection of insects through decades of global travel. As they grapple with Parkinson's, these soulmates, married for 55 years, decide to give the collection away. This film's brought to you by Missoula Bone and Joint.
For virtual movie passes and festival information, go to wildlifefilms.org.
More than 60 years ago, R.J. Rangich opened up Rangich Brothers with one thing in mind: quality and family tradition. Those family traditions continue today and live through our family, staff, and those who buy our RVs. So whether your travels include the shores of Flathead, Glacier Peaks, Yellowstone Geysers, or the hidden gems in between, jump into Jayco and experience the best freedom you and your family will ever know. Only where a handshake means something. Rangich Brothers RV Center.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel. Colton Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. A trio of players from the Montana State football team have entered the NCAA transfer portal, including part-time starting cornerback Tyree Gibson and his twin brother Tyrese Gibson. They both entered the portal on Tuesday evening. That was just a few hours after sophomore running back Tyrell Burgess also headed for transfer.
Tyree Gibson served as one of MSU's primary man-to-man corners, playing heavily in a rotation that also included senior Damian Washington and junior Tyrell Thomas. Gibson had an elevator role because senior All-Big Sky cornerback Munchie Filer missed all last season. Gibson notched 9 tackles and broke up 3 passes in 2019. Tyrese Gibson, he played in just 2 games, broke up a pass for the Bobcats.
The 5'8", 160-pound Burgess is one of Montana State's fastest players from the day he stepped on campus out of Haines City, Florida. He was one of MSU's primary kick returners in 2017. He had 5 touches from scrimmage in 2018, but missed all of last year with injury.
And finally, with the resignation of Jay Jagelski as the Missoula Sentinel head men's boys basketball coach, boys basketball coach, Montana Class AA ranks now has 5 basketball positions open. Gelski and Kalispell Flathead boys basketball coach Ross Gustafson each stepped away from their position, as did Eric Peterson, the head girls coach at Helena High. There are now openings also at Kalispell Flathead and Missoula Big Sky on the girls' side as well.
Put them on a list of bands that should be more famous than they are. That is Wolfmother. It's Tutel and Nuanez 102.9 ESPN Radio. Outstanding to be with you on a Tuesday. Appreciate each and every one of you. At Gus Tutel on Twitter, at 102.9 ESPN, and at Skyline Sports MT as well. Your relevant Twitter handles. You can hit us up on there. Say what's going on. Who's the most underrated band?
The most underrated.
Maybe for another day. I'm just, it's occurring to me. This would be one of them. Coulter, Balint Moxon.
Yep, you got it.
Has become the latest Idaho State Bengal men's basketball player to transfer.
Yep.
He is transferring as a grad transfer. And the grad transfer thing is very common. So this by itself is not a big deal. The only eyebrow-raising part of this would be that he's transferring within the Big Sky Conference to Weber State. Often when guys grad transfer, they're trying to go play in a league, in a conference that's different than the one that they've been in and see, get a different look at things and all that kind of deal. He's just transferring to a different school, obviously within the Big Sky, to Weber State. This also is eyebrow-raising because it comes on the heels of, count them up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys who have transferred from everywhere from Utah and Creighton to Pacific and Portland State out of Idaho State. And this after Bill Evans was fired a year ago. Now they stuck around for this year and now are not sticking around any longer. And so you're talking about a huge exodus.
Some of these guys left before this year as well, too. I just think there are multiple things that are interesting about this. First of all, as we know, Weber State had almost no one back on their roster. They graduated several. They had a bunch more leave. So they had 7 scholarships coming into this offseason, this is not the early offseason. This is the late offseason. It's hard to fill those things. They've now filled them then with grad transfers from now Idaho State with Balint Moxon, Grand Canyon, in Florida. And then they also have a couple junior college transfers, and now they have a European kid that's about to sign. So they almost have it all wrapped up here in short order. So that's interesting from the Weber State perspective. From the Idaho State perspective, I just find it hilarious, darkly hilarious, when schools that don't really invest much of anything in certain programs have coaches that are better than they deserve, get rid of those coaches, and then get what they deserve. I argue this forever. There's different levels of expectation at every school in the Big Sky Conference. I think if you're finishing in the middle of the league at Montana, you're not living up to expectations. If you're finishing in the middle of the league at Weber State, you're not living up to expectations. If you're finishing anything but last to Idaho State, you're exceeding expectations. In terms of the resources that are put into the program, the expectation at Idaho State in men's basketball, specifically men's basketball, is last. That is the expectation. And Bill Evans, while was never a world beater while he was at Idaho State, never finished last.
Right.
Mostly finished 7th or 8th, which I would say is actually playing above your head more than almost any team in the league. And when you look at the places that these guys have gone, I mean, if you had a team, Novak Topalovic, Brandon Boyd, Alonzo Walker, Gary Chavichian, Kelvin Jones, and Balint Moxon, if you had that team right now, those guys, all those guys coming into the Big Sky next year, I'd pick you in the top 3 teams in the league.
Yeah.
And they would have had those guys if they would have kept Bill Evans. But instead, Idaho State forced Bill Evans into retirement and hired Ryan Looney. And we have not had a chance to talk to Ryan Looney.
Right.
So Ryan Looney had great success at Point Loma, a Division II school, and they did win a game in the Big Sky tournament this year. So we'll see what the results are. And maybe the roster turnover will be the foundation for them having a resurgence in Idaho State basketball. But all I'm saying is that I just thought it was a hasty decision to get rid of Bill Evans. And then you have all these pretty talented guys just leave. I just really would have wished that they would have just. I mean, all Evans asked for there was a 1-year deal, so he could just coach all these guys during their junior and senior years. I just think that would have been a pretty okay team.
This is, again, to your point, this is not about, Ryan Looney is not a good coach or something like that.
We have no idea yet.
No. But what it is when you have a guy who's been there for a long time, it's hard to get a coach to come to a place like Portland State, like Pocatello and Idaho State, and stay for a long time. Look, it's hard to get any coach at the Big Sky level to stay for any sort of duration and be good. And Bill Evans was a better than you think head coach, given all the things that he had, all the challenges of being a head coach at Idaho State, like you said. And then when he goes, all the players that have been there that were good players, or many of them, head for the exits. And that's not an indictment on Ryan Looney. That's the guys who looked like they, liked Bill Evans and wanted to be there with him. And then when the time came that wasn't going to happen anymore, they said, see you later. And we'll see how they're able to reload, to recruit, to rebuild, and all of that stuff. But it's a hard process. Ryan Looney could be, a great coach, and it's still going to be a much harder ask than it would be if he was the head coach at other places, like maybe even Point Loma, right? Where within their division, within their conference, where they, who they play, is a school that a lot of kids want to go play at and want to, have their careers there. So, we'll find out soon enough, I guess, how things go at Idaho State. But right now, it's not good. And right now, I mean, they're looking for dudes.
It's Point Loma played for the Division II National Championship. Yeah. Ryan Looney's last year there. And I followed them a little more closely than maybe I would have, because they had a young man named Dalton Hamas. Dalton Hamas is the younger brother of Jasmine Hamas, who was once upon a time the Big Sky Conference MVP at Montana State. Their aunt, Blythe, she was also a Montana State Hall of Famer. So they had strong connections to the state of Montana, strong connections to the MSU basketball program. Dalton Hamas was a guy that was a late bloomer. Coming out of high school, he was a normal-sized guard who blossomed into he had a huge growth spurt. He became a 6'8" guard, and he was the star of the NBA Summer League last year. He almost made the Milwaukee Bucks, and now he's playing in the G League. But he was one of the breakout stars, a kid from a D2 school who's then all of a sudden tearing it up.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is that he would have been the best player on Idaho State last year.
Right.
Certainly. If you can get a dude like that, though, to go to Point Loma, maybe Ryan Looney can get a dude like that at Idaho State. We'll see. But I just think that Idaho State wouldn't have had this mass exodus if they wouldn't have gotten rid of Bill Evans. And I also worry, all those guys I just mentioned, they're good, solid Big Sky players. None of them, besides Brandon Boyd, was actually a star. But I just worry so much if a guy like Novak Topalovic can go to Utah, or a guy like Kelvin Jones can go to Creighton, what sort of minor league system is the Big Sky becoming? And if you got guys that are just straight up leaving to go be the 11th man at Creighton, then what's the point? It just seems so weird. I just hope with this new transfer stuff, if you're a grad transfer and you earned your undergrad degree, you should be able to go wherever you want.
Agreed.
But if there's going to be all these no waivers, like Holland Woods is not a grad transfer, but he basically transferred to Arizona State from Portland State under the premise that he thinks that the rule that you could transfer once without having to sit out is going to get passed. Who knows if it does or not, but I just think that when you're losing first-team All-League players to bigger schools, and then those guys don't go there and they don't do anything, it makes it pointless on both sides, right? Because all of a sudden you're the one developing these guys, then they're going somewhere else. You don't get to see the dividends of their senior year, but also they're not getting to play at their highest level and produce at their highest level either.
I want to continue this conversation. I'm going to take a different view on this, sort of as a devil's advocate, but also just with a question. We'll do that right after this.
At Opportunity Bank of Montana, we know that checking accounts are not one size fits all. Let us introduce you to Opportunity Bank's full suite of checking account products, including personal and business options with no minimum balance and no monthly service fee. Or if earning cash back suits you, Opportunity Reward Checking may be the perfect fit. Need to earn interest? We have those options too. Call or come into Opportunity Bank for a checking account that fits you. Opportunity Bank of Montana. Serving Montanans since 1922. Member FDIC.
The Missoula Broadcasting Company presents We Are Missoula. Here's Malcolm from the Loose Caboose.
I made the very difficult decision to close our business when this COVID thing swept through. Most of my employees felt that they would rather go without pay and protect their safety. We also serve a lot of elderly customers, and ultimately, you've heard the phrase, I'm dying for a good cup of coffee. Well, I didn't want to give that a different meaning, so we decided to close the business even though we were not required to. My employees have been very grateful that we made that decision for the most part. So as long as they're backing me up on this, we're going to keep it in the safe zone. I'm actually staying really busy myself because I'm doing a lot of repairs that can't be done when we're operating. So like things that are difficult that I normally do at night, staying in touch with our team daily almost. And then, personally exercise and outdoors has always been big for me. And so that's been my mental health, is to get out there. And we're so lucky in Montana.
We are Missoula, and together we will get through this.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter Brooklyn was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Welcome back to Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Check us out on the podcast, the Tutel and Nuanez podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. All over the podcast world. All right, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Transistor. Go enjoy it. It's there thanks to Blackfoot. We appreciate them for getting us on the podcast side of things very much. Coulter, we were talking about the transfers. We were specifically talking about Idaho State, but I want to ask you this question because you said, it's a bad look when guys are transferring, even if they're grad transferring, to go to schools where they're not playing or they're not, it's not, they're not. Is Holland Woods, what kind of player is he going to be at Arizona State? Now, he has a chance, I think, to actually garner a fair amount of playing time at Arizona State. I mean, he's a really good player. Yeah. But other guys, some of these, the third, fourth player at Idaho State is probably going to not go make much of an impact when he heads to Creighton,
That kid's 7 feet tall, so that's the reason he got a shot at Creighton. But, yeah, I mean, Kelvin Jones was not he was not a standout in the Big Sky. So,
But here's my question, I guess. If you come out of high school and you go to the Big Sky Conference and you work in your career to a point where maybe you're a late bloomer, maybe you've had, just playing on the Division I college level gets you more exposure than you were ever able to get because you weren't on an AAU circuit or something like that coming out of high school, whatever it might be. And now all of a sudden you have a coach who tells you, you know what, there's a spot for you if you want to come to a big-time program like Creighton, though it's not in a Power 5 or a high major conference, or, a high major conference type of school. And hopefully they're honest about what your prospects are of going out there, and you're not going to probably be, go and be the number one guy or even a starter or whatever it is.
Yep.
But I think that there's a lot of kids. Look, I don't know. We always talk about guys, especially basketball players, have basically, if you're playing Division I basketball, you've basically been the best player on your team your whole life.
Right.
And you got one thing on your head, and that is to go to the league. I mean, you want to go play in the NBA or at least certainly play professionally. But I think, a lot of kids are going, no, I'm going. I grew up with Jamal Crawford or whatever it is. I'm going to go play NBA basketball. All I'm saying is this. We assume that's true about a lot of these kids, and for many of them it is. I think there's a lot of kids that understand this is the end of the road. I'm going to play Division I basketball.
Interesting.
I enjoy it. We'll see what happens. Maybe there's something for me, but this is what I'm here to do. I'm enjoying playing basketball, and I'm going to let that be what it is. And within that mindset, if you go, you know what, I could go to Creighton, and there's 14,000 people coming to every single basketball game as opposed to 1,400 in Pocatello, and it matters there, and I could, go experience that, even if I never play, even if I'm the 11th guy, but I'm on the team. I'm doing this thing, in this place. Arizona State, the same thing. I could go down to a state university in Arizona. James Harden,
and he's also from there too. Holland Woods is from
right?
there.
Okay, so going home.
That part I think makes a lot of sense.
But I mean, within and say, hey, what would it be like to be on a college basketball team at a university that has 40,000 undergrad students at it, that are, a tenth of them are going to every game, and I'm there. I'm in the uniform. I'm doing the thing. I would like to have that experience, even if it means that I went from being a 32-minute-a-game guy to a 2-minute-a-game guy.
Yeah, sure.
And nobody wants that, right? Presumably, you want to play. You go because you want to play. But also, I think that there are more things that go into it, and we scoff at this. We kind of laugh at this, but it's not crazy to me. I feel like I've seen this before where guys grad transfer because they have a program academically that they really want to go do, and we never talk about that within the context of sports. It's always like, well, why did you want to go play for this coach? It's never about, well, you know what? They had a great paleontology program. That's what I care about. So I don't know. It just seems like I get it. Okay, we're doing sports talk. We're talking about athletes. We're talking about kids playing sports. And if you're playing Division I sports, it's a huge part of your life. And for most of them, I would say it is the central portion of their life. It is the hinge on which the door swings when you talk about decision making and what you're doing, where you're going. But also, there are a plethora of other reasons and motivations to do various things and go various places. And if I had been at Idaho State for three years, and I had a chance to go to Creighton or Arizona State, regardless of outcome, I think I would be pretty hard-pressed to go, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay here with a second-year head coach.
For sure. And, I mean, this is the Gino Crandall, right? Gino Crandall was an outstanding guard at North Dakota. And when Gino Crandall's from Minneapolis, so he actually is a Midwest guy, but when it was announced that North Dakota was leaving the Big Sky, he said, well, I don't want to play in the Summit. I don't want to play basketball in the Midwest. Right. I think I have more of a West Coast style. I want to play on the West Coast. So he grad transferred to Gonzaga. And he was by no means a star, but he played.
He's like the sixth man.
He's like the first combo guard off the bench. And, But he had some highlights, and he got to play in big games, and he got to play against the best of the best.
Went to the tournament and
now he's playing overseas. And so, I mean, it all works out for sure. And I totally I totally get what you're saying. I think it is a good one. I think that I think there's more delusion in Division I men's college basketball in terms of the individuals than there is in any other sport.
Yeah.
I really do. And I think I think it impacts the breadth of the sport more than maybe any other factor.
Let me ask you one more question about this, and let's use Gino Crandall as an example. I have no idea what Gino Crandall believed about himself as a player, professionally, NBA, overseas, whatever it was. I don't know what he expected out of the transfer from North Dakota to Gonzaga and what that was going to be like and what he was going to get to be able to do. I would tend to argue that, he got to play for Gonzaga, went and played multiple games in the tournament, played in some big games, and within the context of his time at Gonzaga for one season, got everything you would have wanted to get basically out of that transfer. Whether he thought he was going to be a starter or something like that, I have no idea. But to me, looking on the outside, I thought he did pretty well for himself, all things considered.
Sure.
I don't see any change whatsoever in his profile or his stock, better or worse, for having done either thing, staying at North Dakota or going to Gonzaga when it comes to what happens at the next level. Like, guys coming out, like, just because you play at Duke,
right?
Like, if you're playing at Duke, that's already saying something. So, okay, I get that.
Totally.
But, like, if you transfer into Duke on your last year, I don't think a bunch of NBA scouts are going, oh, wow, he made it to Duke. We better take a long and hard look at this guy. You go to the combine, you do the thing, and you see where your chips fall.
What do you prioritize, I guess, is what it comes down to, because I think a lot of the atmosphere and stuff like that, I mean, playing at Arizona State in front of a bunch of people, that's one thing, but I would never fault a guy for transferring to Gonzaga, because if you go to Gonzaga, it's the most surefire trip to the NCAA tournament that there is in college basketball. You're going to the tournament.
Yeah,
whereas even though Arizona State is on a national level a better program than Portland State, I don't know if you actually have a better chance of going to the NCAA tournament.
Right now, you're
right
probably
now
right.
You don't.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're Holland Woods and you're going to be the best player coming back in the Big Sky, you'd have to think that you would have the best chance of leading your team to the NCAA tournament. I'm not saying Portland State is going to be my preseason Big Sky favorite next year, but if they would have had Holland Woods, I think they would have been in the top 3 probably.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Arizona State's got coming back. They've been okay under Bobby Hurley recently, but also at this point, the Pac-12 is like a 1 or 2 bid league. So how do you make it out of the Pac-12 either? I don't know. I think it does come down to priority. It drives me crazy when some guys, though, when they transfer to schools that really just have no shot of getting in the NCAA tournament, and you're just leaving one situation for another, and it's just kind of a wash. And it just, if you have an elevated opportunity for your own individual self, okay, that's one thing, but just leaving for the prestige or whatever, I don't know. It doesn't make much sense to me.
On the for the prestige and all that, I get that. But let's talk about transferring in conference. Okay, when you go from Idaho State to Weber State, for instance, or from Idaho State to Portland State has been the case for Alonzo Walker, I think you're talking about kids who really just wanted out of the situation that they were in, and
right.
If that's the case, it has worked out so well. In particular, very recently for one person, Fallon Frigge. Like when she goes, and now it wasn't in conference because North Dakota left the conference, but it's a parallel move, I guess, if you want to talk about in terms of the conferences or whatever. But what she got out of her one and only season at Montana State, not just the team success, but her place and her role and her relationship, I guess you would say, with the group. I mean, it was really enjoyable to watch her excitement about what she was now finally getting, and that's so much. I mean, that's if you are just happy with the people that you're with, the coach that you have, and all of that. If you're the 7th person or whatever, I mean, again, I think that is maybe this is sort of too passive a way to think about it, but I think that is a big draw. And if clearly it's not working out at a place, I mean, there's such a thing as transferring into a school because you want to go play at Arizona State, and there's such a thing as transferring out of a place where you're like, nah, I'm good here. And I think you're seeing both of that right now at Idaho State in some ways.
No doubt. And I think that's one thing we overlook a lot of times, too, is just the lifestyle upgrade. I mean, to be frank, if you're moving from Pocatello, Idaho, a lot of other places, it's going to be a lifestyle upgrade, especially for a young person. You're Fallon Frigge, moving from Grand Forks, North Dakota to Bozeman, Montana. I think that most people would consider that a lifestyle upgrade. Yeah. Especially for college kids, because it's the college town element, too, right? That's accentuated. I don't know. I think that there is a lot more details that maybe go into just the standing on your lawn and saying, all these kids transfer portal's the devil.
Boys and girls, we appreciate being with you. We'll hit the 25-day plan tomorrow. Flyleaf, better than Paramore.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
If you weren't listening to Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio this week, here's what you missed.
First of all, it's a great weekend because it's a Cat Grizz weekend.
Hello, Montana.
Sometimes you get what you deserve.
I am tired, though.
You can just tell Bozeman is just a buzz right now, man. It's the campus, the town, everything's just booming.
There's a lot of things to like in the state of Montana. There's a couple things that you kind of go, oh, okay.
I love the ice and the cold and the wind and the snow and all the misery that everybody complains about. It gives me great joy. I'm happy you can't drive. I'm happy that you're cold. I enjoy all of it. It's my favorite part about living in Montana.
I know where I live, okay? I'm from here, okay? I hate fishing.
You're not going to find a better recruiter than Brian Fish.
I think that factor gets lost.
If you were to have me do a power rankings of jobs in the league, I would tell you that Northern Arizona and Southern Utah's women's programs are dead last
in Big Sky basketball jobs, men's and women's.
Let them go run around, put like one person in there, an employee to hang out or whatever.
But go check out my Twitter.
I think I saw of the actual concert probably a grand total of about 8 to 9 minutes.
What have you been doing?
Right.
Why are you not prepared? This is your job interview. What is going on with you?
Because I was, upside down. I've been knocked over to the ground. Now I got my, face stuck in somebody's back. It's great.
This guy can play in the NFL.
You lose weight.
I'm just trying to derail this because this is the last thing in the world I want to talk about.
You are so bitter. Maybe this is why you're so angry, is because you only believe things you can see. Let's think about things that we can't see.
No!
This is dumb.
There's only one basketball, right?
Here's the thing. At the point that you've been invited to the combine, you have crossed a threshold that's a very impressive one.
All these guys now are posing in terms of their authenticity of their swagger compared to that guy.
What an interesting deal that would be.
Montana has made it to the NCAA tournament 7 out of the last 14 years and 5 out of the last 10 years. They haven't performed even close to well.
That's the one example that works for.
So describe Flagstaff for people that haven't been there.
Rural Southwest deal of being in the desert, the high desert, living off the grid, all that kind of stuff. Not sitting here talking about just like crazy people who are chasing UFOs in Roswell, but there is a lot of the culture of that world.
It's an epically beautiful place.
Let's go.
Flagstaff will never not be weird.
Yeah. Those are some of the things that are advantages.
Missoula remains a very funky and very cool town.
I got many thoughts. I'll leave them at this point.
Tutela Nuanez from 4 to 6 every weekday afternoon on 102.9 ESPN Radio, Montana's best sports talk. ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. If you weren't listening to Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio this week, here's what you missed.
First of all, it's a great weekend because it's a Cat Grizz weekend.
Hello, Montana.
Sometimes you get what you deserve.
I am tired, though.
You can just tell Bozeman is just a buzz right now, man. It's the campus, the town, everything's just booming.
There's a lot of things to like in the state of Montana. There's a couple things that you kind of go, well, okay.
I love the ice and the cold and the wind and the snow and all the misery that everybody complains about. It gives me great joy. I'm happy you can't drive. I'm happy that you're cold. I enjoy all of it. It's my favorite part about living in Montana.
I know where I live, okay? I'm from here, okay? I hate fishing.
You're not going to find a better recruiter than Brian Fish.
I think that factor gets lost.
If you were to have me do a power rankings of jobs in the league, I would tell you that Northern Arizona and Southern Utah's women's programs are dead last in Big Sky basketball jobs, men's and women's.
Let them go run around, put like one person in there, an employee to hang out or whatever.
But go check out my Twitter.
I think I saw of the actual concert probably a grand total of about 8 to 9 minutes.
What have you been doing?
Right.
Why are you not prepared? This is your job interview. What is going on with you?
Because I was, upside down. I've been knocked over to the ground. Now I got my, face stuck in somebody's back. It's great.
This guy can play in the NFL.
You lose weight.
I'm just trying to derail this because this is the last thing in the world I want to talk about.
You are so bitter. Maybe this is why you're so angry, is because you only believe things you can see. Let's think about things that we can't see.
No!
This is dumb.
There's only one basketball, right?
Here's the thing. At the point that you've been invited to the combine, you have crossed a threshold that's a very impressive one.
All these guys now are posing in terms of their authenticity of their swagger compared to that guy.
What an interesting deal that would be.
Montana has made it to the NCAA tournament 7 out of the last 14 years and 5 out of the last 10 years. They haven't performed even close to well.
That's the one example that works for.
So describe Flagstaff for people that haven't been there.
Rural Southwest deal of being in the desert, the high desert, living off the grid, all that kind of stuff. Not sitting here talking about just like crazy people who are chasing UFOs in Roswell, but there is a lot of the culture of that world.
It's an epically beautiful place.
Let's go.
Let's go. Flagstaff will never not be weird.
Yeah. Those are some of the things that are advantages.
Missoula remains a very funky and very cool town.
I got many thoughts. I'll leave them at this point.
Tutel and Nuanez from 4 to 6 every weekday afternoon on 102.9 ESPN Radio, Montana's best sports talk.
Hey, Carolyn.
Hey.
Where do you find all your sports news?
I have unidentified sources. It's a pretty big business.
Every Friday on Tutel Nuanez, Carolyn shares what she learns from those unnamed sources.
That's right. It's Carolyn, the chick who doesn't know sports. Tune in every Friday to find out what you don't know about sports on Tutel and Nuanez.
The chick who doesn't know sports, brought to you by the Iron Grizz. Tune in to Tutel Nuanez each Friday afternoon for your chance to win a voucher for 2 to wine tastings each Wednesday at the Iron Grizz.
Listen to Tutel and Nuanez every weekday from 4 to 6, right here on 102.9 ESPN Radio in Missoula.
Hello, my friends. Times are crazy, people are strange, but that's nothing you didn't already know.
Uncertainty certainly rules the day, but at Tutel Nuanez, we refuse to let any of the world at large get us down, right, Gus?
You got it, bud. Colton Nuanez and myself, Ryan Tutel, are dedicated to bringing you the most entertaining, fresh, and fun sports talk you'll find anywhere on the radio.
No live sports, no problem. We've never been more excited to engage with you and give you some levity each and every day, no matter how tumultuous the times.
Tutel and Nuanez, each weekday, right here on 102.9 ESPN Missoula.
In these unpredictable times, Liberty Electric wants to wish all hope, strength, and good health. We are truly thankful for each and every one of you. Caring and considering the needs of others, we will get through this and hopefully be stronger than ever. Being designated an essential business, we are here to work safely and diligently to take care of residential, commercial, and industrial electrical problems. If we can help, please call Liberty Electric at 541-WIRE. That's 541-9473.
Raise your voice.
Montana children deserve a safe, stable, and supportive family. If you suspect a child is being abused or neglected, call the toll-free child abuse hotline immediately.
Raise your voice.
Call 1-866-820-KIDS. That's 1-866-820-KIDS. Silence is not an option.
Please, stand up for a child today.
Brought to you by the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services.
Raise your voice for Montana kids.
The 2020 International Wildlife Film Festival is happening April 18th through the 25th. This virtual festival promotes understanding of wildlife, habitat, and nature, with over 65 films available online.
In this together, we are one. The Buffalo Unity Project features a small school on the Fort Peck Indian Reservation teaching the importance of the buffalo to the Aani and Nakota peoples, hoping to reach their students in a new way. This film is brought to you by Blackfoot.
For virtual movie passes and festival information, go to wildlifefilms.org.
2020 is a census year. The census form has just 9 simple questions. Fill it out online, by phone, or by mail. It's important, quick, and secure. Montana receives nearly $20,000 for each person who completes the form. That means more money for schools, healthcare, and infrastructure. Everyone counts. Learn more at census.mt.gov.
Sponsored by the Montana Department of Commerce. Aired by the Montana Broadcasters Association and this station.
Sports radio for Darby, Hamilton, Stevensville, Corvallis, Victor, and Missoula. Western Montana plays here. 102.9 ESPN Radio.